Have you ever wondered why some women are respected, valued, and impossible to forget, while others spend their lives chasing attention and approval? The difference is not beauty. It is the boundary they refuse to break.
A wise woman does not beg for love.
She builds the space where real respect begins. Today you will discover the one boundary that changes how a man sees you forever, and by the end of this, you will understand exactly why it works. In this journey, you will learn the boundary that protects your peace, raises your value, and naturally draws deeper respect and admiration from the people around you.
1. The boundary of self-respect. Why your standards define your value.
There is a quiet truth about human relationships. People do not only respond to what you say, they respond to what you allow. Every person teaches others how to treat them, not through words, but through repeated actions. If you constantly accept disrespect, people learn that disrespect carries no consequence. If you constantly ignore your own needs, people learn that your needs don't matter. If you constantly give your energy, your time, and your love without any balance, people may start to see your giving as something they're simply entitled to. This is why the first and most powerful boundary a woman must build isn't a boundary against another person. It's a boundary with herself, the boundary of self-respect. Because before you ask anyone else to value you, you have to decide first that you are valuable. Many people misunderstand self-respect. They think it means being cold. They think it means acting superior or never caring about anyone. But real self-respect isn't arrogance, it's inner stability. It's the ability to love someone deeply without losing yourself. It's the wisdom to give without becoming empty. It's the strength to stay kind without letting kindness turn into a weakness.
A woman with self-respect doesn't need to announce her value.
She doesn't need to say, "You should appreciate me." She doesn't need to convince anyone she's worthy. Her actions already say it. She knows what she'll accept and what she won't. She knows when to speak and when silence carries more weight, and most importantly, she knows that losing someone is painful, but losing herself is far more painful. So many women spend years trying to become more attractive, more pleasing, more impressive, hoping someone will finally choose them. But the deepest kind of attraction doesn't come from constantly trying to be chosen. It comes from becoming someone who chooses herself.
Think about a tree.
A strong tree doesn't chase the wind. It doesn't run after sunlight. It doesn't beg the rain to fall. It simply grows deep roots. And because those roots are strong, it survives every storm. A woman with self-respect is the same. Her confidence doesn't come from how someone looks at her. It comes from knowing exactly who she is when no one is watching. This is the foundation of every healthy relationship, because without boundaries, love turns into fear. You start thinking, what if they leave? What if they stop caring? What if I'm not enough? And from that fear, people slowly abandon themselves. They accept things they shouldn't. They stay silent when their heart is breaking. They keep proving loyalty to someone who doesn't even respect their presence. But a wise woman understands something important. Love without self-respect isn't love. It's attachment, and attachment creates suffering. When you're attached, you say, "I need you to make me feel valuable." When you have self-respect, you say, "I already know my value and I welcome someone who can appreciate it." There is a real difference between these two energies. One comes from emptiness. The other comes from fullness. A woman who respects herself doesn't create boundaries to punish anyone. She creates them to protect her peace. She doesn't say, "I'll ignore you so you feel pain." She says, "I'll step back because my peace matters." That difference is everything, because many people misuse boundaries as weapons. They create distance to manipulate. They go silent to make someone chase them. They withdraw affection to gain control. But true boundaries aren't about controlling another person. They're about controlling yourself, your reactions, your choices, your energy. A mountain doesn't fight the storm. It doesn't scream at the clouds or chase the rain away. It simply stands. That's the quiet power of inner strength. When a woman develops this kind of stability, something shifts. She becomes less desperate for approval. She stops measuring her worth by someone else's attention. She stops asking,
Am I enough for them?
and starts asking instead, is this situation even worthy of me? This isn't selfish, it's wisdom. Because the person who abandons herself for love eventually loses the ability to give real love at all. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot bring peace into a relationship while your own mind is at war. You cannot build something healthy while constantly betraying yourself. Your first responsibility is to yourself, not because others don't matter, but because you matter too. A woman who knows her worth becomes powerful in a quiet way. She doesn't compete, she doesn't prove, she doesn't chase. Her presence is simply enough. And this is where so many people misunderstand attraction. They think it comes from always being available, always responding, always giving, always being there. But sometimes the greatest respect is created when people realize your presence is valuable. And a precious thing isn't valuable because it's hidden. It's valuable because it's rare. Your time is valuable. Your energy is valuable. Your attention is valuable. Your emotional space is valuable. When you treat these things as valuable, others learn to treat them with care. But when you give them away without awareness, others may forget how important they really are. This is why your standards define your value. Your standards aren't walls that keep love out. They're doors that let the right kind of love in a person who truly respects you will never be offended by your healthy boundaries. They'll appreciate them because mature people understand that a strong relationship isn't built by two people losing themselves. It's built by two complete individuals choosing to walk together. Remember this, the woman who knows her worth doesn't become harder to love. She simply becomes impossible to disrespect. 2. Stop giving unlimited access. The power of emotional distance. Nature teaches us this lesson every day. The sun gives light to the entire world, but even the sun keeps its distance. If it came any closer, its power would destroy the very thing it was meant to nurture. That's a beautiful reminder about human relationships. Giving is beautiful. Caring is beautiful. Loving deeply is beautiful. But giving without balance can quietly destroy your own peace. Many people believe that showing love means always being available, always answering immediately, always explaining everything, always being emotionally present, always proving their care. But wisdom teaches something different. Not everything valuable should be easily accessed at all times. A person who has unlimited access to your attention may stop recognizing its value. Not because people are inherently bad, but because human nature grows comfortable with what's always available. When something takes no effort, no patience, and no appreciation to receive, people start to take it for granted. This is why emotional distance isn't rejection, it's balance. A wise woman understands that closeness and space have to exist together. A flower needs sunlight, but it also needs room to grow. If you hold a flower too tightly because you love it, you crush it. Sometimes love requires the wisdom to step back. Many women make the mistake of giving too much too soon. They reveal every feeling, they explain every thought. They rearrange their entire routine around someone else. They make another person the center of their world and slowly, without even noticing, they lose their connection to themselves. Their happiness starts depending on someone else's mood. Their confidence depends on someone else's attention. Their peace depends on someone else's behavior. That is a dangerous place to live because anything outside your control can steal your peace. A wise woman learns to build emotional independence. That doesn't mean becoming heartless. It means remembering I can love you, but I don't have to lose myself in you. I can care about you, but I won't abandon myself for you. I can appreciate your presence, but my life still means something without it. This mindset changes everything because desperation pushes people away, while inner stability earns respect. When someone senses that your entire happiness depends on them, the relationship becomes heavy. But when they sense you're already whole, they feel free. And freedom creates deeper connection. A strong woman doesn't chase attention. She builds a life that deserves attention. She invests in her growth, her knowledge, her health, her purpose, her peace. She doesn't sit around waiting for someone to complete her story. She keeps writing it herself. That's the hidden power of emotional distance. It reminds both people that love is a choice, not a prison. A relationship should be two people walking side by side, not one person carrying the other, not one person begging the other to stay, not one person constantly proving her worth. When you stop giving unlimited access, something interesting happens. People start to notice your absence. They start to recognize your contribution. They start to understand that your energy was never something ordinary. But remember, the goal isn't to make someone miss you. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself. Because if your boundary only exists to get a reaction out of someone else, you're still controlled by them. Real freedom comes when your boundary exists simply because you respect yourself. A wise woman doesn't withdraw to create fear. She creates space to maintain clarity. Sometimes distance reveals the truth. When you're always available, you can't see someone's real effort. You're always filling the gaps, always making excuses, always fixing what someone else refuses to fix. But when you step back, reality gets to speak. People show you who they truly are. Some will come closer with real appreciation. Others will walk away because all they ever valued was your availability. And both outcomes matter because truth is always better than illusion. A person who only loves your sacrifices doesn't truly love you. A person who only appreciates your giving doesn't truly appreciate you. Real love respects your boundaries. Real connection respects your individuality. Real admiration comes from someone recognizing that you have the strength to stand alone. The most powerful woman isn't the one who needs nobody. She's the one who can love deeply while still standing firmly within herself. She knows when to open her heart and when to protect her peace. She knows when to give and when to step back. That is emotional mastery. And emotional mastery is one of the greatest forms of personal power, because the person who controls her emotions controls her life. The world will always test your boundaries. People will always discover what they can get from you. The real question isn't whether people will test you. It's whether you'll stay loyal to yourself when they do. Because the moment a woman stops chasing approval, she steps into a different level of strength. One where her silence speaks, her presence carries weight, and her choices reflect her inner value. 3. A woman who controls her energy controls the relationship. Your energy is your life, where you place your attention, your emotions, your time. These things slowly shape the quality of your entire existence.
Many people believe relationships are controlled by words.
They believe the person who talks more has more influence, that the person who explains more will be understood, that the person who gives more will be loved more. But wisdom says something different. The person who controls her energy controls her experience. A woman who understands her own energy doesn't let every situation disturb her inner world. She doesn't let every comment shake her confidence. She doesn't let every shift in someone's behavior control her emotions, because she understands something powerful. Whatever you allow to control your mind begins to control your life. Look around and you'll notice people losing their peace over things they can't even change. Someone doesn't reply quickly and they spiral into anxiety. Someone acts a little differently and they start to worry. Someone gives a little less attention and suddenly they're questioning their entire worth. But a woman with inner wisdom does it differently. She pauses, she observes, she doesn't react immediately because she knows emotions move like waves. A wave rises, a wave falls, but the ocean remains. Your emotions are the waves. Your inner self is the ocean. When you become the ocean, no single wave can destroy you. That is the difference between emotional strength and emotional dependence. Emotional dependence says, I'll be happy when someone treats me right. I'll feel valuable when someone chooses me. I'll have peace when someone finally understands me. Emotional strength says instead, my peace belongs to me. My value belongs to me. My happiness starts inside me. This doesn't mean a woman stops caring. It means she stops handing over the keys to her emotional world. A wise woman can love someone deeply without letting that person control her entire existence, because love becomes unhealthy the moment you give someone the power to decide how you feel about yourself. Imagine handing over the remote control to your own mind, letting someone else decide when you smile, when you worry, when you feel confident, when you feel insecure. Would you really give anyone that much power over your life? Many people do this without even realizing it. True freedom begins the moment you take that power back. You can't control another person's thoughts. You can't control their choices or their feelings. But you can always control your response, and your response reveals your level of wisdom. An untrained mind reacts instantly. A trained mind observes first. In the space between what happens and how you respond, that's where your power lives. Someone may speak harsh words, misunderstand you, or disappoint you, but in that space between the moment and your reaction, you have a choice. You can lose yourself in anger or return to your center. You can chase explanations or protect your peace. You can fight to prove your worth or remember it was never dependent on anyone's approval in the first place. This is the quiet strength of a woman who controls her energy. She doesn't waste herself trying to convince people who've already chosen not to understand. She doesn't spend endless nights analyzing someone's behavior. She doesn't destroy her own peace trying to manage someone else's actions, because she understands that energy is limited, and what's limited must be protected. Think of a candle. It gives light, but if the flame is constantly exposed to strong wind, it eventually weakens. Your inner energy works the same way. Constant drama, constant overthinking, constant chasing approval, constant emotional battles, these things slowly wear down your spirit. A wise woman protects her flame, not to hide her light, but so her light can keep shining. This is why some women grow more attractive as they grow more peaceful. Their beauty isn't only in appearance, it's in their stability. People are naturally drawn to someone who feels grounded, someone who doesn't panic easily, someone who doesn't need constant reassurance, someone who can sit in silence and still feel whole. That kind of presence is rare, because the world is full of people chasing attention, but few people have truly mastered themselves. A woman who has mastered herself becomes powerful without trying to look powerful. She doesn't need to create jealousy or play games or manipulate emotions. Her strength comes from discipline. Her confidence comes from self-awareness. Her attraction comes from authenticity. And a person at peace with herself creates peace around her. A river doesn't force the stones to move. It simply keeps flowing. And over time, the stone changes shape anyway. That's the power of consistency. A woman who protects her energy doesn't need to demand respect. Her presence communicates it on its own. 4. The silence of a woman who knows her worth. There is a silence that comes from weakness and a silence that comes from wisdom. Many people can't tell the difference. Weak silence comes from fear. It says, "I'm afraid to speak. I'm afraid they'll leave. I'm afraid I won't be accepted." But powerful silence comes from understanding. It says, "I don't need to explain everything. I don't need to prove myself to everyone. I don't need to fight every battle." This is the silence of a woman who knows her worth. She doesn't spend every moment defending herself because she knows truth doesn't always need a loud voice. A diamond doesn't scream to prove it's valuable. Gold doesn't argue with someone who fails to recognize its worth. Its value exists regardless of anyone's opinion. The same is true for a woman with real inner confidence. She doesn't shrink because someone fails to appreciate her. She doesn't question herself because someone misreads her. She doesn't lose her identity because someone walks away, because she knows that someone's inability to see her value doesn't erase it. This lesson is difficult because humans naturally want to be understood. We want people to see our intentions, our efforts, our love. But wisdom reminds us, not everyone has the awareness to recognize what's right in front of them. A person can stand before a stunning sunrise and still choose to stare at the ground. Does that make the sunrise any less beautiful? No, it only reveals the limits of the person looking. A woman who knows her worth stops exhausting herself trying to convince everyone. She lets people see her through their own level of understanding, and that's where silence becomes powerful. Silence creates space, space creates observation, and observation reveals the truth. When you stop constantly explaining yourself, you start noticing who actually understands you. When you stop chasing someone's attention, you start seeing who naturally gives it. When you stop forcing connections, you find out which ones were genuine all along.
A wise woman understands that not every question needs an answer.
Not every insult needs a response, and not every misunderstanding needs a defense, because every reaction costs energy, and she's careful about where hers goes. This doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It means responding with intelligence instead of impulse. There's a real difference between silence born from powerlessness and silence born from mastery. The strongest people don't fight every battle they see. They understand that unnecessary fights create unnecessary wounds. Life is too valuable to spend constantly proving yourself. Your time is too precious to spend convincing someone to appreciate you. Your heart is too valuable to spend chasing someone who can't see it.
The woman who knows her worth doesn't beg someone to stay.
She doesn't threaten or manipulate. She simply observes. If someone respects her presence, she welcomes them. If someone repeatedly disrespects her, she creates distance, not out of anger or revenge, but out of wisdom. Because sometimes self-respect means walking away from what keeps damaging your peace. This is one of the hardest lessons in life. Many people hold on to things that hurt them, simply out of fear of losing them. But sometimes the very thing you're afraid to lose is the thing keeping you from growing. A seed can't become a tree while clinging to the comfort of staying a seed. Growth requires change. Strength requires release. A woman who knows her worth understands that every ending isn't a failure. Sometimes an ending is protection, sometimes distance is healing, sometimes silence is the answer, because when you stop chasing what won't choose you, you make room for what truly belongs with you. 5. Why people respect what they cannot take for granted. There's a deep principle in human nature that many people overlook. We tend to recognize the value of something. Once we understand it isn't guaranteed. A beautiful sunset doesn't happen every second. A rare flower doesn't grow everywhere. A precious moment matters precisely because it can't be repeated endlessly. The same principle shows up in relationships. A person's presence becomes more valuable when it's appreciated, not simply assumed. This isn't about playing games or pretending to be unavailable or creating distance to make someone suffer. It's about understanding the difference between love and unlimited access. A wise woman doesn't try to make herself hard to reach. She simply refuses to be available at the cost of her own dignity, because when someone gets access to everything without effort, appreciation, or respect, they may slowly forget the value of what they have. People often adapt to whatever becomes normal. When something is always present, the mind stops noticing its beauty. Someone might have a beautiful garden right outside their home, but after walking past it every day, they stop seeing it until it's gone. And suddenly they understand what it meant. This is why a woman should never let her love, attention, and energy become something people receive without awareness. Your kindness is powerful.
Your loyalty is powerful. Your love is powerful. But even the most beautiful things need balance.
A wise woman understands, I can give love without giving away my entire self. This is where so many people lose their footing. They believe the more they sacrifice, the more they'll be loved. That always saying yes, always understanding, always putting someone else first will finally make them valued. But relationships don't actually work that way. Love built only on sacrifice eventually loses its balance, because when one person is always giving and the other is always receiving, the connection loses harmony. A healthy relationship isn't one person constantly proving her worth. It's two people recognizing each other's worth. A woman who understands her value doesn't keep asking, what else can I do to make them choose me? She asks instead, are we choosing each other? That single shift changes everything, because love isn't about convincing someone to stay. It's about building a connection where both people willingly remain. There's a difference between being needed and being valued. Someone may need what you provide without ever valuing who you are. They may need your attention, your comfort, your support. But do they appreciate your heart? Do they respect your boundaries? Do they truly see your presence? A wise woman doesn't just notice what someone takes from her. She notices what they give back. Because real connection isn't measured by how much you offer. It's measured by how much both people honor each other. This is why self-respect creates attraction. When a woman respects herself, she communicates something powerful without saying a word. My love is valuable, my time is valuable, my energy is valuable, and I don't give these things carelessly. This doesn't make her cold, it makes her conscious. A river is valuable because it flows freely, but if everyone throws waste into it without protection, eventually the water turns polluted. Your emotional world works the same way. If everyone has free access to disturb your peace and demand your attention whenever they please, you eventually lose the ability to protect yourself. A wise woman builds a gate around her heart, not a wall. A wall blocks everything. A gate lets the right things in. This is the wisdom of boundaries. The right person won't be offended by your standards. They'll respect them, because mature people understand that a woman with boundaries isn't difficult, she's clear, and clarity builds trust. Many people fear setting boundaries because they think it will cost them people, but sometimes boundaries don't push away the right ones, they simply reveal the wrong ones.
A person who only wants access to you will resent your boundaries.
A person who genuinely values you will understand them. Sometimes losing someone's attention is actually gaining your freedom, because attention without respect was never love to begin with.
A relationship shouldn't require you to constantly shrink yourself so someone else feels comfortable.
You shouldn't have to become less intelligent, less confident, less expressive, less yourself just to keep someone interested. The right person isn't drawn to a smaller version of you. They're drawn to who you actually are. A woman who understands this stops performing. She stops trying to impress and chasing approval and simply becomes authentic. Authenticity carries a different kind of power, because pretending takes effort, but being yourself creates peace. The woman who knows her value doesn't compete for attention. She trusts that the right person will recognize her without needing convincing. The ocean doesn't chase ships. Ships come to it naturally. True value doesn't require constant advertising. It simply exists. 6. Becoming the woman who chooses herself first. The greatest transformation in a woman's life begins the moment she stops asking, "Will they choose me?" and starts asking instead, "Am I choosing myself?" That single question is the beginning of real inner freedom. Many people spend their whole lives waiting for outside approval, waiting to be recognized, appreciated, finally seen. But wisdom teaches us that you cannot build your identity on someone else's opinion. Opinions change, feelings change, situations change. But your relationship with yourself is something you carry everywhere all the time. Choosing yourself first doesn't mean becoming selfish. It means understanding that you too are a person who deserves care. Many women are naturally giving. They support others, encourage others, forgive others, sacrifice for others, and these are beautiful qualities. But there's a danger when kindness forgets itself. A woman can spend so much time caring for everyone else that she forgets to care for her own heart. She becomes everyone's source of strength while quietly running on empty inside. Choosing yourself means remembering that your dreams matter, your peace matters, your growth matters, your happiness matters. You don't need permission to become the best version of yourself. A wise woman understands that her life isn't a waiting room. She doesn't sit around expecting someone to complete her. She keeps growing, keeps learning, keeps becoming, because her purpose is bigger than being accepted by one other person. When you choose yourself, you stop negotiating your own worth. You stop thinking, maybe if I become different, they'll love me. Maybe if I give more, they'll appreciate me. Maybe if I sacrifice more, they'll finally see me. A woman who chooses herself understands instead, I don't need to become less to be loved. I don't need to abandon myself to keep someone. I don't need to chase what's meant to meet me with respect. This mindset builds real confidence, because confidence doesn't come from everyone loving you. It comes from knowing you'll still be okay even when someone doesn't. That's emotional independence, and it's one of the strongest qualities a person can build. Picture two people in a relationship. One says, I need you because without you I'm incomplete. The other says, I choose you because my life is already meaningful and I want to share it with you. The second person loves from strength. The first loves from fear. Fear creates attachment. Strength creates connection. A woman who chooses herself doesn't love any less. She loves more deeply because her love isn't run by fear. She isn't holding on out of fear of being alone. She's walking beside someone because she genuinely values their presence. People can feel this difference. They can sense desperation and they can sense peace. They can feel when someone has abandoned themselves and they can feel when someone is simply comfortable being who they are. And that kind of presence is powerful, because the world is full of people looking for someone to complete them, while a person who has already completed herself becomes rare. A wise woman builds herself, her mind, her character, her health, her purpose. She creates a life she genuinely respects. And when someone enters that life, they don't become her whole world, they become a beautiful part of it. That's the real difference between love and dependency. Dependency says, without you, I can't survive. Love says, I can survive without you, but I choose to walk with you. One comes from fear, the other comes from freedom. And freedom is what people find magnetic. A free person doesn't need to control anyone. She doesn't manipulate, beg, or chase. She simply lives according to her own values. This is why the woman who chooses herself becomes powerful, not because she becomes unreachable, but because she becomes grounded. She knows when to stay and when to leave, when to speak and when silence works better, what deserves her energy and what doesn't. That is mastery. Mastery of herself, her emotions, her choices. Because the greatest victory was never making someone obsessed with you. The greatest victory is becoming so connected to yourself that you no longer need obsession at all. You become someone who attracts respect naturally, who brings peace into relationships instead of chaos, who doesn't beg to be valued because she already knows her worth was never something someone else created. It was always within her. There comes a moment in every life when you have to answer one essential question. Am I living according to my own values or according to someone else's approval? This question changes everything because the person who waits for others to hand her value will always feel uncertain. Other people's feelings and opinions can shift at any time. But when you build your value from within, no one can take it from you. A woman who chooses herself doesn't see herself as half a person searching for another half. She sees herself as a whole human being who is capable of sharing her life with someone else. That distinction creates real emotional strength, because love should be an addition to your life, not a replacement for your identity. A tree doesn't stop being a tree just because another tree grows beside it. It keeps standing, keeps growing, keeps reaching toward the sky. Healthy relationships work the same way. Two people growing together, not one person disappearing into the other. A wise woman learns to include herself in her own care. She listens to her own needs. She protects her own energy. She understands that saying no, sometimes, is its own act of self-respect. Because every yes you give to one thing is a no to something else. A yes to constant drama can be a no to your peace. A yes to pleasing everyone can be a no to your own happiness. A yes to chasing someone can be a no to your own growth. This is why awareness matters so much. A woman who chooses herself moves through life with intention. She asks, does this bring me closer to who I want to become? Does this honor my values? Does this protect my peace?
A powerful life isn't built through random choices.
It's built through conscious ones. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you become capable of a deeper kind of love, because you're no longer loving from emptiness, you're loving from fullness. When you love from emptiness, you're saying, please complete me. When you love from fullness, you're saying, I am whole, and I choose to share my life with you. The second kind of love is peaceful. It's free. It's mature. A woman who chooses herself doesn't chase someone who fails to see her value. She doesn't fight to stay somewhere she's constantly unwanted, because forcing connection only creates suffering. A flower doesn't force itself to bloom. It grows naturally when the conditions are right. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from whatever is keeping you from becoming who you're meant to be. Not out of hatred, not out of revenge, but because you finally understand your responsibility to yourself. Your life is a precious opportunity. Your energy is limited. Your time doesn't come back. So choose carefully where you place your heart, who receives your attention, and what deserves your effort. A woman who chooses herself becomes peaceful, and peace is one of the most attractive qualities a person can carry, because it can't be faked. Confidence can't be borrowed, inner strength can't be performed. These things are built through daily choices. Every time you protect your boundaries, you grow stronger. Every time you honor yourself, you grow clearer. Every time you choose growth over approval, you grow freer. This is the real journey. Not becoming someone who needs everyone's admiration, but becoming someone who deeply respects herself. Because when you respect yourself, you naturally attract people who understand respect. When you protect your peace, you naturally drift away from chaos. When you choose yourself, you build a life where love becomes a beautiful addition, not a desperate need. That is the boundary that was promised at the beginning of this. Never abandon yourself to be chosen by someone else. The woman who respects herself, protects her energy, and chooses herself first creates a presence that simply cannot be ignored. She doesn't chase love, she becomes someone who understands what love actually means. Your greatest power was never making someone obsessed with you. Your greatest power is becoming so connected with yourself that you no longer need to beg anyone to see your worth. Protect your peace. Honor your standards. Choose yourself, because when you know your value, the world begins to recognize it too.